This session is a panel discussion. It's termed Our Time Is Now, Conversations about the 2020 and the Road Ahead. 2020 has been a hard year for all of us. From the COVID-19 pandemic and its devastation of lives, businesses, and social fabric, all of us have faced uncertainty, and all of us have persevered. In our perseverance, we have learned, we've grown, and we now look ahead to a changed world and confront the opportunity to shape it for the better. In that spirit of reflection and action, this panel will feature a diverse array of people from our food system. We ask them how their year went, what they faced, how they adapted, and what gives them hope, and how they plan to move forward stronger. I'll introduce them now in the order that they'll speak, and they'll give more when they do. Beth Knorr is the Executive Director of the Summit Food Coalition in Summit County. Richard Stewart is the owner of Carriage House Farm in Hamilton County. And Ted Stutz is the owner of Ohio Earth Foods, Franklin County. So Beth, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Beth Knorr, Director of Summit Food Coalition in Summit County, Ohio. Akron is our biggest city. And Summit Food Coalition is a group of people and organizations that are coming together to build the framework for a just, sustainable, and vibrant local food system. And as such, we try to focus on systems work. And one of the things that we noticed in 2020, we've noticed it even in good years, it's really difficult to get people to focus on systems issues as opposed to immediate needs. And building enthusiasm to tackle large-scale systemic change within the food system is a challenge at any time. 2020 certainly was no exception, and understandably so, the immediate needs certainly came to the fore, while at the same time I think a lot of the systemic issues were highlighted. You know, the disparities between the folks who pick and pack and even retail our food, our growers, versus others, and you know, the folks who are in office jobs, the safety nets that people who go to an office to work have versus those who are in the fields. Things like health insurance, paid sick leave, all of that was really highlighted during 2020. For us, we are an extraordinarily small organization. I'm the only paid employee. We do have a Vista, but we're a partnership of many entities in our community. But it was really difficult for us to gain traction because so much focus was placed on the immediate needs of people. So many people were experiencing hunger because of lost jobs. And so for us, we could not really gain traction in highlighting some of those necessary challenges that would benefit from long-term investment in the food system. I would say that I feel incredibly lucky. We have always been challenged with trying to raise funds, as many nonprofits are. It's very difficult to raise funds. Raising funds for systemic and even policy issues is challenging in a very good year. It was nigh impossible in 2020. But we were lucky enough that we had a strong partner who was willing to allow us to integrate into their operations. And that process is still unfolding. And so I feel really lucky. I know a lot of nonprofits are on the brink of ceasing to exist. And so I feel, even though our tiny nonprofit had some challenges, that we navigated it the best we possibly could this year. I think some of the challenges that I fear we're going to have is that even though some of these systemic challenges were highlighted, the disconnect between growers losing markets and people desperately needing food. We have a short attention span as a society, and I think that my fear is that we're not going to remember those things when things presumably go back to normal. And so we will continue to not address really long-term solutions that manifest with short-term emergencies. And to be honest, you know, I'm not really sure how confident I feel in looking forward. We're still navigating this, right? 2020, when it became 2021, did not end our challenges. We're still wading through these things and still trying to figure out how to move forward and address some of these issues. And so I'm just not really sure. I'm not pessimistic, but I'm not sure that optimistic is a word that I would use either. So anyhow, that's been our experience. You know, it has been challenging to sustain the momentum of our partnerships to really address longer term solutions to these challenges. And I hope that as things hopefully normalize within the next year, some friends in the health department think 2022 is the year to look at. I do hope that we can revisit some of those issues and convince people that investing in long-term solutions is necessary and worth doing.
All right. My name is Richard Stewart. I'm the owner here at Carriage House Farm. We're an Ohio sesquicentennial farm. I've been around since 1855. We started in 2005 supplying local chefs in the area and doing 1 or 2 farmers markets. At our high point at exporting food off the farm, we were supplying 75 different locations in the greater Cincinnati area, from upscale delis to restaurants, and participating in 3 farmers markets: Hyde Park Farmers Market on the east side of Cincinnati, North Side Farmers Market, and Findlay Market, which is the oldest, I think, continuous operating market in Ohio. Back in 2014, my wife and I traveled to Italy, and we had such an amazing experience that when I came back, I decided that we would slowly move towards keeping as much produce here on farm, decreasing our carbon footprint by not taking food off the farm, but by having people come here from within the community as an alternative to chain food restaurants and the like. I mean, we were already supporting local single-owned restaurants that were sharing that sort of vision already, but we didn't have a food desert in our local community, but we had a quality desert, I think, in terms of understanding what local food really was. And during that time, while we were starting to make that change, we were starting to see a lot of restaurants really kind of explode in Cincinnati. That market had become highly competitive. There were other growers that were starting to enter the market. So we felt that that change was starting to make really sense and be less more of a leap of faith. So as we were starting to lose buyers, COVID hit. And on March, I believe it was 16th, when they announced that the restaurants would have to close their doors to in-house service. You know, looking back on that now, now it's commonplace, but back then it seemed like everything was coming to a screeching halt. We had a meeting with staff that Sunday, the day before the closure, and we had a meeting with staff and said, listen, we're going to move to a retail model rather than trying to wholesale and send our produce out. We're going to make the change that we were planning on doing over a slow, gradual 2-year period and make it happen right then and there. And we tried to get as many people to come to the farm as possible. We had a high tunnel full of spinach, and we ended up selling every last bit of it to market goers in March and April. And we went around and met with remotely with all of the vendors that we went to farmers markets with. Kind of the same, we were all kind of reciprocating. Everybody was kind of doing the same thing, trying to find a model that would work in those first 2 or 3 months. And so we started selling our honey and our grains to other local vendors that we were at farmers markets with a year prior, because we were all opening up these small retail venues. And so we went from offering about 5 or 6 fresh products on our farm market stand, plus our honey and grains, to offering soap and chocolate and chips and jams and jellies. And suddenly we had 70 or 80 products that were hyper local, all within the Cincinnati community. And the people that were coming to our farm market stand wanted more. And 6 months later, we had a retail food operating license, and we've got a I call it a level 4 inspected food kitchen, but it's basically a catering kitchen where we're doing soups and salads out of, and we've got deli coolers and freezers, and we're retailing pork and beef and chicken eggs, and we just kind of hit the ground running with full retail. And we still grow what we grow. We expanded our CSA to expand and to include everything that we were selling to the restaurants, because, like all farmers, by March, by the time of closure, we had already committed to our seeds and our transplants and our infrastructure for that type of model. And we weren't too sure the retail model was going to work out for us. So we expanded. We basically essentially doubled our CSA. And now we've had basically a full year of this. We decreased our CSA model so that we could have more retail up front. We've got a food truck now that's permanently parked here. That's also doing catering off-site, as well as a food option, hot food, prepared food option here on the farm. And we've expanded to have an outdoor terrace dining area with fire pits, because we wanted to keep, it's December rolls around and it's 30 degrees outside, but you want people to keep coming to the farm. So we've got fire pits and picnic spots around the farm. And we just kind of rolled with it. It's we've replaced the business loss that we had with the restaurants because of COVID, but it's a different business model because everything we're selling now isn't necessarily off farm, so we're not making as much money off of it. But our sales overall have eclipsed our gross sales from previous years prior to this change, and we just keep moving, plugging right ahead. It's those first 3 months were hard. My wife and I were trying to basically homeschool the kids, and neither one of us are teachers, and everybody's been going through that. But my goal really wasn't to produce food. My goal was to make sure my employees were able to make a living as safely as possible. We divided our harvest and field crew so that there was minimal contact between those of us that had direct contact with consumers, so that we were able to minimize contact. I was kind of the point person on that, so that should I get sick, my harvest crew would always be functioning. And yeah, it's there were a couple moments there. I'm in the skid steer prepping ground, clearing some honeysuckle, and there's a killdeer nest there, and I had to move it. Killdeer couldn't find the nest. I mean, I almost broke down in tears. It was like the weirdest period of time, and very stressful. That's more so than normal farming. Like it's not. But things are good. We've kind of gotten used to this now a year later, and we're planning classrooms with Edible Ohio Valley Magazine. They formed a not-for-profit called Edible Foundation, and we're creating what's called the Edible Schoolhouse, where we do outdoor classwork, small numbers of people, where we intend on filming and videoing it and making accessible online as well as live for some of them. We're just trying to kind of plug forward like it's like things will eventually change. I think 2022 will be the year. I think this year is going to be we're going to be playing kind of hit or miss throughout the whole year. And yeah, that's kind of our story right now. It's constantly changing.
Okay, should I go now, Eric? Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Ted. I own Ohio Earth Food, and nice to see everybody this morning. Our year was really good in terms of sales. It was strange because in 2019 we sold a lot to hemp growers, and their market kind of collapsed. So I was a little nervous about 2020 before the pandemic hit, and I should start by saying my heart really breaks and goes out to restaurants and any growers that were selling to them and the hit they took. It's just terrible. And, I really hope that all comes back around, because I just think restaurants are just the backbone of our culture in the Midwest. But besides those customers, the folks that hung in there with CSAs and farmers markets had great years. And so we had a fairly normal year. I personally had the same challenges a lot of you did with trying to homeschool, because I've got 2 kids and my wife's an educator in different districts. And, one of them would be having class and one of them wouldn't. And we had grandparents helping out. So we had to be really careful about staying well, so we didn't get these wonderful helpers sick. But a high percentage of our customers are Amish Mennonite, and they just kind of plowed on like, I hate to say nothing was happening, but, they still had in-person trade shows. I've been at 2 trade shows up in Holmes County where there are almost 1,000 people in there live in the last 3 months, and not very many of them wearing masks. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but that business has just gone on like nothing had changed. So that was different experience from what a lot of people had. We had a couple challenges with, employees being exposed or having symptoms, and we were essential. So we were open even when everyone else was closed. And so we did things to make sure that if anyone from the county stopped in, that they could see we were really trying hard, running a HEPA filter and having masks available and hand sanitizer and cleaning the doorknobs and all that. And we had a few customers that called and wanted to pay with a credit card and have us leave stuff out on the driveway. But for the most part, it was pretty normal, which really was a blessing. The opportunities I see from this are the renewed interest in growing. Our sales to home gardeners really took off. We did more internet sales in 2020 than we did in the previous couple years. Simultaneously, UPS put a little premium on packages over 50 pounds, which most of our stuff are 50-pound bags. So freight shipping went up a little, which I think deterred some internet buys. But that was a nice increase there. And I just love to see, in a world that's getting more and more digital and stuff that I don't find to be so real, you know, that people are getting involved in like a real lasting interest like gardening and urban farming. That was wonderful to see that increase. And I think a lot of the urban farms around where I live in Columbus are thriving, which is great. And orders that we're delivering to them are twice as big as they were the year before. The other increases and opportunities that we see, I think, you know, cannabis is on the rise, medicinal and recreational, and you know, we're gonna adjust to that. But with all these increases in internet sales and cannabis and other things, you know, our core market and our core focus are small family farms, CSA, farmers market, whatever restaurant, whatever you go to market. And that's where we're going to keep our focus, and, you know, I'm really not going to let our company be distracted by these other things. So in spite of issues we've had with, you know, freight is a problem this year, because when the shutdowns happened, a lot of the semi truck drivers just stopped and started collecting unemployment. And so there's as the increase in freight in the country builds up, there's not enough drivers, and that cost has gone up. But we're just going to keep on keeping on and do everything we can to make sure when small farms need organic inputs, we can get them to you. And in any way that they need us to behave to stay safe, we'll comply. We have a farm called the Micro Farm Project, which is property that my brother and I own in Johnstown, Ohio, and we lease it out kind of turnkey to people that are getting started in or wanting to get started in vegetable production. The idea was to kind of remove the barrier of land availability from people getting into vegetable production, and that's gone really well. We've got 2 tenants each that increased their acreage this year up to 2 and 3 acres. So we're full. My original thought was to have 3 tenants, each with an acre or 2, but we're going to have 2 tenants, each with 2 or 3 acres. And they both have put up high tunnels, and the access that they've had to equip grants has been awesome. I mean, these guys are getting, you know, huge infrastructure capital expenditures covered completely. So they're growing like wildfire, and the demand for vegetables is strong enough that I think they're both going to have great years. So that's exciting to see that the spirit there and the drive to get into the business that those folks are demonstrating is really encouraging. And yeah, we have a branch in Wisconsin, and so we get to see the huge statewide community support in Wisconsin for the CSA farms up there, and the huge CSA membership that exists in Wisconsin. And, you know, I still am very hopeful and an advocate for some way to increase that in Ohio. I think that was a interesting lesson from the pandemic, is that CSAs, while they are kind of an old way to market, that, you know, there's a lot of benefits there. And we started one in the last 2 years. Patchwork Gardens operates one. Their drop-off location is our garage. And in the first year, they picked up like 18 members, and they had winter shares at about 12 members. So if anybody knows anything that I can do to help with helping farmers to drive on with CSA or other connections directly to farmer or consumers instead of going through the grocery store model, I think that's this is an opportunity that's continuing to be identified for growth of the industry in Ohio. Really all I've got.
All right, do we want to open it up for questions? Y'all know how to raise your hand. If you just raise your hand, I'll call on you. All right, who's questioning? I got a couple questions. You know I do. Beth, you mentioned that, dude, there's a lot of addressing the symptom. And, you know, we've got a lot of talent right here in this conversation. And how do we work together on a cause? Where do you see a unified idea for action And I mean, I don't want you to talk for the 12 states OEFFA certifies in, or even for the state at large, but you know your area, the Northeast, Summit County. Where do you see a concerted action for where folks can get together to initiate positive change?
That's a really great question. And I think the answer isn't really that simple. I'm not sure that there is one specific thing that I feel like people are rallying around. Certainly, food access is something that we see a lot of momentum around. And actually, we were able to implement an interesting program last summer, a pilot program where we connected low-income households that needed access to food directly with local farmers, and it was delivered directly to their doors through a partnership with DoorDash. As many people know, transportation is a big challenge for low-income folks in being able to access nutritious foods. And so this was a really interesting solution, but I'm not sure how long-term it is. I think it was good, and it's been able to demonstrate that this could potentially be a viable venue, but making sure, for us, making sure that the growers were being paid and paid adequately for their product, and that the clients who needed the food were getting nutritious food. That was a win-win for us. But in terms of like, what is a unifying rallying cry, I ask myself that question all the time. And if we really want to get to the root cause of what the challenges are, for me, paying people and our $15 minimum wage, or quote unquote living wage, isn't a living wage. Even in Akron, which is incredibly affordable to live in, that is not a living wage for a family. And so I think this emphasis on ensuring that humans are paid a human value is something that can help cut to the core of some of the issues that we see, that people will then be able to choose the kinds of food that they want, stable housing, all of that kind of thing. But that to me seems to keep resurfacing, especially as it relates to access to food.
Thank you. Call for questions. Just unmute yourself and ask. We're among friends here. All right. Well, I got a lot of questions. I know each of these people personally for a number of years, and I'm honored that they're joining us for this conversation. So I want to leverage their knowledge base. Richard, dude, they say location, 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 and you're talking retail. I grew up in Cincinnati. Shawnee Lookout Park was one of my haunts, man. Did you get enough traffic going to that golf course and that or are you teaming with Cleve's, tourist bureau or things like that? How do you drive traffic to your farm?
Well, social media is king there, partly. We've also benefited from having a couple articles in the Cincinnati Enquirer and West Side Press that I don't know, basically screamed why you need to go to Carriage House Farm or why you need to go to North Bend, Ohio. But a lot of the reasons why we were forced to do this early, that was always one of our big concerns. A neighboring farm, Weber Family Farm, they're located right off of the 275 loop, maybe a mile and a half from us. We keep bees on their property. We trade them sweet corn for honey, and they get tons of traffic. But they're a summertime only kind of, normal traditional summer market, whereas we're kind of operating all year round. And you're right that over here we don't get as much foot traffic or road traffic that you would get closer to the city. but we're only located 20 minutes outside of downtown Cincinnati. And a lot of times on online forums when we're talking about what we're doing with other farmers and stuff, we always have the caveat that we are located within, our region has 2.85 million people that live between Dayton and Lexington, and we're 5 minutes off the highway. You're out here and it feels like you're in the countryside, but within 5 minutes drive, you're within close to 85,000 people. So it's kind of like if you build it and then market it and then have COVID, people show up. The local Kroger's, when this all started back in March, for the first 2 months, they wouldn't stock their shelves to minimize contact for their employees or the general public. They wouldn't stock their shelves until 7 or 8 p.m. So you would go to Kroger's and there would be no eggs on the shelf at 1 p.m. because everybody would be in buying early in the morning. So we have some chickens on the farm, but not a lot. I think we produce about 16 dozen eggs a week after we take our share. And so what we did was we hit up all the little old ladies that were selling eggs on Facebook Marketplace once we got our retail food license. And we said, listen, you can drop them off. We'll pay you a premium because we'll charge the same price that we're charging for our eggs. They're selling them for cheaper. You minimize contact because there's only one point of contact as opposed to, one person for every dozen you're selling. And we'll give you an upcharge on those if you deliver them to us. And so they were getting an extra $1 a dozen for eggs. And we kind of became, for lack of a better term, egg pimps. And at one point we were selling like 200 dozen a week. And some of that has changed. It's like how we were talking about social awareness and farming and food access and stuff like that, and how after this all changes again, hopefully people don't forget that. And so we feel as if we're running this, we've got a finish line here before things change to get people used to the idea of coming here, while unfortunately restaurants are still dealing with issues, while Kroger's theoretically still dealing with issues, while people still want to be outside. I think Shawnee, you bring up Shawnee Park. Shawnee Park had more visitors this past year than they have in the last 10. And we actually created a 1 mile loop that started at our retail location, went all the way around our property and back, because people were actually starting to feel unsafe walking the trails at Shawnee because there were so many people at that park. And so as a matter of, I don't know if it's taking advantage, because you want to give people a sense of place and a sense of ownership. And we try to make it as user-friendly and simple as possible. If you're a birder or a cyclist that was taking advantage of the Oxbow area here, which is a big wildlife refuge, and or cycling the trail, we offered on-site parking for those people so that they could securely park their car and go watch birds or cycle. We've done everything within our capacity to make us as appealing as possible for the environment that we're all currently living in. So, and again, going back full circle, it's social media that's allowed us to do that and do it affordably. We pay a little bit for social media. We're starting to work with a company that excels in getting you access, smart access. Previously I was a package designer before I was a farmer, so I'm really good at on the appearance of things and our branding and stuff like that. But I know zip about SEOs and how to properly run a Facebook ad or a Google ad. And when we first started, we were just wasting money. and now we've got it dialed in where we've got a pretty good social media and marketing team that's not on staff, but from another company. So
cool. Thanks for weighing in. Karisa, you have a question?
Sorry, I have kids in the room that I had to prep that they have to be quiet for a minute. So I just threw a comment in the chat about Camille Enchelon did a workshop on Thursday that was 3 practical strategies to improve access to fruits and vegetables among vulnerable populations. I don't know if anybody else watched that one, but he talked about, he did 3 different programs, all of which the farmers were paid for the produce. They created kind of like a community pool funds where they used that to, some of the work of like the organizers was volunteered, but I think one of the programs that they had implemented was they created a kind of community garden on site at a local health clinic, and then used that to give produce to the customers there, which I thought was really interesting. So if you have the opportunity, you guys should all go back and rewatch that one because it was super good. And then I did have another question and I don't remember it off the top of my head. So my situation with my farm is a little trickier. We are a sober house / recovery house, so anonymity is super important. We can't have people coming to our farm to pick things up and things like that. So we run into a little bit of trouble with that sort of thing as far as access and opening up those kinds of things as like a selling option for our produce. We do have markets that we go to, but I was just wondering if anybody had any solutions off the top of your head that you might be able to think of as far as ways we could do that. We do CSA, but again, we're a nonprofit. So delivering to people is a bit of a tricky thing for us as well. And so, yeah, just if you have any ideas or other questions for ideas or anything like that, that would be great and helpful.
Karisa, what about a local drop-off point where people can, you just take for your CSA, take it there and people can go there to pick up?
We've thought about doing that. At the end of last year, we did a survey with our CSA. We only had 12 CSA shares last year, so we're still pretty small. But we did the survey, and I think the vast majority of the responses said that if we did a pickup location, they wouldn't come back. So it's something that's like, if we broadened our like reach about people who knew that we existed, that I think that would be doable. But it's something that we've considered, but we don't know how to implement. Although if I think a decent number of our subscribers are in like the Akron area-ish. So, and we're in North Royalton, which is like a Cleveland-ish suburb type thing. I don't know what to call it, city. So yeah, that is something that we have considered.
Ben, you had a question?
No, I actually just wanted to offer a little bit of advice in terms of that issue too, and just to for those who don't know, my wife and I operate a produce operation outside of Dayton, Ohio, and we've grown from the really small acre or 2 when we began to growing about 15 acres of vegetables. And I feel like a lot of the issues that that were just brought up in terms of distribution and reaching people and things like that, like a really great thing to work. And I think what the farmers in Wisconsin do, like what Ted was talking about, was referencing, is people work together. And if you yourself are having, or there are constraints on what you can do, in terms of the distribution that you can do from your farm. Like it really, like we can amplify the amount of community outreach that we do by working with other operations. We're part of a co-op of other farmers, and it allows us to go to markets and distribute, food in places that we would have difficulty getting to on our own farm. I guess, so like to that end, I would just say like I think that the focus, always should be on like our craft of growing, and we should always try to get better and better as growers and produce, as much food, I think, as we can, because it's true. There's a huge need for this food, and we should do everything we can to produce as much of it. And a lot of that, I think a lot about distribution and marketing, can really be solved by, working with other farmers. Like for example, we have the ability, because we have the land, because we have equipment and crew and stuff like that, to kind of have a lot of storage vegetables through the winter. But distributing, it's like we don't want to deal with driving as much and so on and so forth. So we sell some, at wholesale prices to an urban farm, and then they do a delivery from there because they're, more in the community than we are. And so anyway, just a suggestion and a plug for working with other people whenever possible. Okay, thanks.
That's definitely something that we want to grow on and things like that. We're kind of new to the OEFFA community, and this is my first conference, and I just started here back in July, so I am relatively new to our farm specifically, but that's something that I'm working on, is the networking and things like that. So I appreciate that.
Karisa, you're only about a half hour from me, and I would be more than willing to give any suggestions that you needed. I'll put my phone number in the chat. All right.
That's awesome, Renee. And I have to say, everybody look at Eric, because he's working right now. He's doing an ODOE in the middle of our session. And that's what Eric does a lot of. So I was going to check in with Guy to see if he had anything he would like to either ask or add to the conversation, since he is joining us also by phone. So if you want to unmute Guy, otherwise if somebody else would like to jump in, raise your hand.
I just saw one question in the chat box, and about this coming season, and I really feel that the upcoming season is going to be as strong for the farmers market and local food sales as it was this year. We saw a tremendous uptick in here at the farm and at the farmers market. We lost our restaurant sales pretty much at the beginning of the year and had to refocus, like I think everybody did. But I really do think, I think this has helped the local food movement as much as it's hurt everybody else on direct marketing to people. Kind of like Richard said, his store came back, and so we're really looking forward to this coming season.
Yeah, can I chime in there also? So Beth, I think that Guy, I don't know if that was towards Betsy's question. Does anyone have any thoughts on how plan for quantities this year? Feel like this is a huge question. What's going to happen in farmers markets? I think we're going to see another year that will continue, just like Guy said. What we're trying to do is basically a value added experience without saying we're going ag tourism. There's a fine line there. To me, ag tourism in Ohio has always meant corn mazes and weddings and paintball. What we did, the very first thing we did, in addition to going complete retail, was we invited a food truck to our farm. And it was one of the chefs that we supplied. All of his events were canceled, just like restaurants were canceled. Taste of Cincinnati was canceled. Events out of Kings Island were canceled. So he had nothing to go to and was setting up outside of hospitals and stuff like that. The office places that were still had people going, but that eventually declined as well. So we ended up having him come out here. We now charge him a rent. We have him directly wired into the building, so he's not running his generator. People come out here, bring their kids because they can get a burger. And when he makes a salad, he's using our fresh greens when they're available. We've started using, he uses Sakura beef, so we started sourcing Sakura beef along with some grass-fed beef from a guy called Rising Sun Beef over in Indiana. So we have a grass-fed beef option as well as a Sakura beef option in our freezers, so that we try to double up whatever's on the food truck at our farm market stand. So if they eat something there, they can take something home that's exactly the same and cook it. So the pickles that are on the burger or on the pulled pork sandwich are also the pork and the pickles that are being offered here in the farm store. So I think that if you've got an on-farm stand or farm market, I think the more you diversify stuff like that with another business possibly, you'll end up further strengthening coming out of COVID and continuing that community presence on your farm.
Richard, I have a question for you. Do you have on-site groups come to your place?
I'm sorry, do I have what?
Do you have groups coming to your site during COVID?
So
how do you handle that?
So what we've done, let's see, what have we done here? We've done, I think we have one person in our group that chimed in. We had a family who's had a wedding that was taking place, and the immediate party, I think it was 40 people, wanted a location to meet, and we provided them with that location outside of the farm market where they kind of set their own little rules, and the food truck was able to supply them with the food. It was completely outdoors. We did a single birthday party, and then we've been a remote location for I don't know, Girl Scout bridging ceremonies. We have a huge fire pit, so they come, and we've got individual picnic tables for each of the families, so the girls do their individual bridging ceremony. We have a big fire and everything, and it's not normal, but it lets them feel as if it's normal. But we haven't done anything indoors at all. It's all been focused on an outdoor experience, where everybody's, we don't have any servers down here running food out. You're required to mask and distance inside. We've got little footstep markers. We've got mask labels everywhere. We have masks that we provide people if they don't provide, because that's one of the problems that we have. We're in the tri-state area. You can see the map kind of located behind me. We're like smack dab in the middle of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And every state has their own rules and regulations. So a large number of people that we have coming to shop here from Indiana, well, Indiana doesn't have any masking regulations for the general public. It's just for businesses. And so we have people coming over who are like, well, I don't have a mask, because we're not required to wear a mask in our state. And it's been really hard to operate in that type of situation, because we know there's a vineyard in Indiana that's had 1,200 person events, and they've maintained their business model, so we offer I guess a light version where if you can have full control over who you're bringing in, or you are properly distanced, we allow the people to have an outdoor event. And we don't really charge for that, with the exception of the weddings and the birthday parties. And like I said, we've only had 2 of those. It's not like we were like booked with events every week or anything like that. We're just, I don't know. It's like your heart goes out to people and you want them to have some sort of normalcy, and there's only so much you can do. And I think Mary Ann enjoyed the event that she was able to have, even though it was not what they were planning at all prior to COVID. But I know that they had, I think they were originally going to go to a country club, and the country club closed its doors to any type of event. So we cleared a big space for them and shut down all business so that there wasn't an interaction between the general public and their party. And I felt that it was pretty safe. They wore masks as they felt appropriate, and
Even outside.
Even outside, yeah. So, and most of what we've had is remote events. So we set up picnic tables around our 45-acre plot, and people, a Cub Scout troop will come down, and they'll all be in masks, and they'll go out to one of those picnic tables and conduct their meeting there, rather than at their church or their community center where they can't do it indoors. And now that's been limited because, it's like 18 degrees outside right now, and we're about to have another 10 inches of snow or something come through here. But, we've seen, because we've allowed for an outdoor venue, we have like these little fire pits where anywhere between 2 to 6 people can squeeze around a fire pit. And you have a sense of individuality, but at the same time, we can have 36 people down at this site simultaneously without them interacting with each other. So it's, we've really focused on the outdoor stuff. We basically, any money that we've gotten in, we've immediately turned into outdoor forms of entertainment. So
we've also used, we do have a couple fire areas. We do some outdoor events. We have an outdoor pizza oven that's phenomenal, and an arbor where we would put local artists. And so we have sponsored anything from weddings to fundraisers. We are a very small farm, and we've had as many as 250 people for a wedding. We've got people asking, and we are just really on the line about it. We put Swedish fires around the large logs, and we can put them all around the property, which then would gather more people. And then after the fires and after that's all done, we just plant more grass seed. So we have somewhat of an availability, but it's still that social distancing. I don't know that we can keep them apart.
It's tough. I mean, it's because the other thing is our insurance companies also pushed back on some stuff that we've wanted to do. So we're under obligation to either follow what our insurance company tells us we're limited to, or find a different insurance company that will most likely refuse also. So, and then not that we really want to. My wife works at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We take this very seriously. We wear masks everywhere. It's I don't know. It's just a weird world. We've got wedding planners that want to do weddings out here, and just, we're okay with a bridal shower where there might be 10, 15, 20 people outside. But what we don't want is to have 250 people in a tent out at a remote location, because it's basically the same thing as being indoors. So, and honestly, if you can open up your farm once this all returns back to normal, there's going to be an entire year worth of weddings that hasn't been done that need place, and there are not enough farm venues, and people are dying for farm venues. So it's there's a lot of possibilities if you've got a farm there for additional income.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, we're wrapping up. We've got about 5 minutes. Who's got a question here? I got to push back, Richard, on your agroforestry comment. We need to claim these terms for ourselves.
I agree.
Ecological food and farm. Ted, I kind of noticed with interest that, we've been watching the hemp industry come into Ohio here very recently. And right at the same time, everyone that was getting into that extractable CBD, dude, that market is now crushed. And I noted with interest that you did not use the word hemp, but you used the word cannabis. Do you see that as a growing market? Do you see that as What are the opportunities there that you see?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Eric. And the reason I differentiated those is because, like I said, in 2019, we had a huge interest in our fertilizers for hemp, CBD, hemp growing in Kentucky and New York and Pennsylvania, not in Ohio. But our Revita fertilizers got a reputation of growing hemp that was testing very low in heavy metals and THC. So people liked that, and that completely shut off in 2020 just because, like you said, that market was so flooded. So I differentiate them because that's a big fertilizer in-ground crop and market for us. The cannabis, I think, to me is more of your indoor, in pots, potting soil crop that's being grown in Ohio for medicinal, and then in Illinois and Michigan and surrounding states for medicinal and recreational. So I look at them as totally different because they're different products that we're selling to. And I think the hemp is, going to take a while to catch back up to any kind of market. But I think that cannabis, indoor with THC kind of stuff is going to be big for a lot of folks. I know that, that obviously the regulatory environment with the permits is tricky, but those that figured it out, I think, are doing pretty well and doing even better in Illinois and Michigan, where there is a rec market. And so we're developing products and carrying more and more products for that market.
I was just thinking yesterday, I don't know what conference has done in the past, but I was just thinking, like, I wonder in the coming years if OEFFA is going to include workshops on growing organic cannabis and THC, because that's something that's obviously growing in popularity and as a market. So I was thinking the same thing the past couple of days. Was like, I wonder if in future years if that's going to be included in a future OEFFA conference.
Yeah, OEFFA.
That's what we want to hear on your evaluations, right? Dude, that's exactly why we put those evaluations out there. Dr. John, I see you waving your hand. You're going to have to unmute that first.
While John's working on that, I would say the one limiting factor in Ohio is you have to get a license to be able to sell, to grow. And they want in building growing of cannabis for medicinal purposes. So yeah, I think our growers could do so much with that if the landscape for cannabis was different in Ohio. So maybe we'll move in that direction.
All right, we got Dr. John live.
Okay, I think I got it unmuted.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Several nights ago, I was trying to make some comments on the future of OEFFA, and I wasn't able to get unmuted, but I've made a few notes that I wanted to share with people. And I've been a member of OEFFA for close to 40 years, and I've learned a whole lot through the years, but I wanted to emphasize what OEFFA has meant to Ann and me through the years. And first of all, it's a networking for a diverse community of intelligent and principled people. And I think that's been a prime aspect of OEFFA. And then secondly, OEFFA has provided monitoring of foods and developments relating to food and nutrition and communicating this to the community. And as an example from this meeting on lab meats, I learned that they have been using oncogenes in producing some of these foods. Even though I try to read a lot of things in medical journals and farm journals and things, I wasn't aware of how they were doing these lab grown meats. And certainly their use of oncogenes puts it on the no list, since we're very much supporters of the James Cancer Hospital. And then thirdly, I think that OEFFA has been very instrumental in addressing the larger questions relating to life on Earth. For example, climate change and global warming and the viral pandemics and infectious and prion diseases. Communicating this information has been a great service that OEFFA has done, and I hope they will continue. And then sharing how-to information for small-scale local food production. That's been a continuing thing. I think back to years ago at St. Stephen's Community House, they had a presentation on blueberries, and Booker Watley, who was producing produce for Domino's Pizza up in Michigan, gave a talk, and he said, if you can't afford to irrigate, you don't have any business messing with blueberries. And that dictum has served us well through the years. And I had some blueberries on my cereal this morning from our blueberries that we've grown, thanks to the advice from Booker Watley. And then finally, I think that continuing to promote the rather overused trio of reduce, recycle, and reuse. Those principles, I think, have been very important for our society as we look towards the future. And although I'm challenged by local competition for organic waste like leaves and wood chips, et cetera, I think we need to keep promoting those principles. So thanks to everyone for everything that you do for the good of the world with OEFFA. I'm proud to have been a member for a long time and look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Dude, that's touching, Dr. John. I mean, I have to call out that we are a generational organization. Dr. John helped me wrap my head around hay production. You know, when I was a vegetable guy and got thrown into greater land management, he also connected me with again, another strong mentor, Ralph Strait, a dairy guy who really showed me the next level of hay production. So yeah, I mean, we are here as a community for support. Sure, I answer a lot of phones, I provide those technical links, but you know, I swim out of my depth often, and knowing that there's folks like Dr. John and Richard and Beth and a whole host of farmer information network that we all can rely upon. That's why we got into that beginning farmer gig, that we want to connect these generational resources as a community. I mean, that's we're at past time, and that is a great way to end, but we don't have anything in the schedule. Renee's the host. If y'all want to hang out and chat a little bit more, that's fine by me. But we are at the end of the scheduled workshop. So thanks for your participation.
I have a question. Can you guys be quiet for just a second? So they're not listening. Does OEFFA have any sort of official like network / situation set up where you have like a farmer panel or something like that, where if like for begin farmers or anything like that? I know you guys have, I know OEFFA has a mentoring program, but I was thinking something a little bit more spot treatment-y and things like that. So if there's something that like comes up for a begin farmer like myself, I'm really sorry about the noise. If something comes up for a begin farmer like myself, where you have a farmer who is an expert in that, who has agreed to like take questions or something like that, if a begin farmer needs help, that OEFFA could connect people with. I don't know if there's something like that that exists. But.
Yeah, we do that rather informally, though there are some formal networks, like you mentioned, the mentoring program through the Beginning Farmer. And we also have a number of listservs. The OEFFA Grain Growers chapter has a discus discussion group, and that's where these farmers interact within each other, and they just put it out there for feedback. We have OEFFA direct listserv. Sometimes those questions show there, but you know, right now,
Yeah,
like
put a plug in for Lisa's market gardening chapter.
I was just getting there that, you know, we are more chapter oriented. We're looking for that community building to have very focused and specialized support. So like I said, the Grain Growers chapter is multi-states. Market chapter is mostly statewide here in Ohio. But that's what we're looking for, is to network amongst your community, and whether that's immediately in your backyard or right now over so yeah, put that in the evaluations too, saying that these are good networking opportunities, and kind of like my hero Ted, I'm kind of a technical Luddite here. Don't get on too many of these Zooms, but yeah, I mean, we all need to move into a different comfort zone.
And I would just
I'm
add,
basically asking
Karisa,
for an OEFFA Reddit.
Karisa, one thing I would suggest, you know, Eric and Julia and Rachel are our ag educators. So they are always a phone call away. Obviously, Eric will take your call even in the middle of a session. And, you know, those are the things, like if you want to talk to other farmers, talk to our staff, and we are happy to come up with that list. We've had that concept of a farmer network, and it is a bit much to try to maintain a physical list to send out and update and make sure people are okay to keep continuing, you know, have their name listed. So, you know, just draw from our staff, and we're happy to hook you up.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. During this, I'm up north up here, and during the pandemic, the Countryside Farmers Market did an online ordering system where you pre-ordered what you needed and get stuff. And that model is a really good model for other farmers, because there's a lot of small farmers here, I'm sure like Karisa, that they're too small to have like a big CSA or to go to a farmer's market, but they can get together with a bunch of other small farmers and use this online platform. There's a lot of them out there. You just got to search, see which one's good, and find somebody that can, you know, set it up for you. But I just wanted, that was a comment, but question was, have other people been looking into that? Because if you get 3 or 4 little small farmers together in a community and set up some kind of transportation place, just do deliveries, you know, locally. I get deliveries for grass-fed beef locally. There's a small farm that will do, you know, Cuyahoga County, you know, as long as you order over $50, and that worked out fine. And something like that for vegetables would work too, except, you know, you're not going to get $50 maybe from me. But anyway, just wanted to ask if people are looking into that, because there are models out there. There's a lot of people doing online ordering, and like the Conservancy Market did at the Cuyahoga Valley.
I will say we've done something kind of like that, not exactly, but it may provide another idea for a model. So we had an elderly couple that's been selling at 3 smaller farmers markets, kind of close to the farm, and during COVID, they had, you know, kind of it's what we've kind of all experienced at farmers markets that aren't really regulated by a board, where you have somebody come in and do like a pump and dump of stuff coming out of Michigan, or from a bunch of Mennonite farmers or something up north, where it's not their produce. And they got so burnt out with that they were just losing money, that we started buying produce from them to make up for our shortfalls. We had a fairly bad drought, and even though we were irrigating, there was a point where we were just fulfilling our CSA shares only, with about maybe 10% of the produce we were growing being sold at the farm market stand. And with the increase of people coming, they're like,
well, we thought this was a farm. Where's your fresh produce? And we're like, well, most of that's going to the CSA. They get first dibs because they paid for it. And they had a hard time understanding that. So we started working with some other customers or some other farmers in the area where we buy it. Now the farm stand itself, we do curbside and delivery service. The deliveries for shelf stable items only, salt cured meats and dressings and jams and honey and grains and stuff. But we do curbside pickup too, because that's what's necessary during this period of time. So if you go to our website, we've integrated that all through the Square. A lot of people use Square for their farm. There's 3 or 4 different iterations of that style of selling platform, digital platform. But they allow a marketing tool in that where you can do pickups and you can do multiple locations. And somebody who might be a little tech savvy may be able to manage that on their own with a couple other smaller farmers without much of a, I mean, there's not much of a cost to that. That's about $20 or $30 a month, which could be shared by several farms in a similar location. You can just do a drop-off point or pickup.
Yeah, so there was mention about what's our contact for some chapter information. There's a link on our website, our homepage, first page of every newsletter. Y'all were looking for Lake Effect. So yeah, that covers Ashtabula, Cuyahoga, Geauga, and Lake counties. Steve Corso is our presidente up there. So it's lake.effect.OEFFA@gmail, and I'll type that into the chat here.
I just sent a link to the whole chapter page, so of our website. So that's in there.
So where we want to go with this discussion, you mentioned, curbside pickup, on-farm retail. Yeah, Guy Ashmore, he had a farm stand the first time I was down there. Have you expanded that? I don't know if you even still do on-site sales now. Guy, what's the update on your farm stand?
Actually, yes, we got on-site, and this year we went to online ordering. We're not real tech savvy, but we pulled it off real well. So we had ordering online and pickup. It was a self-serve pickup. We had a wash station outside the building, and ours set up on Wednesdays. And then we actually did online ordering for the farmers market, also Deerfield Township Farmers Market, and that was also in person. So people had a choice, and we could have one table for pre-orders, and the rest was, in person. Deerfield never went to a drive-through market. It was always in person.
Not over yet, though.
And actually this year we're expanding our market here at home and then trying to handle. We lost a lot of local customers because we went to totally online. So although our sales were up, but we're going to go a little bit of a hybrid, I guess, where we have a pickup or CSA one day, and then the farm shop will be open to the public rest. And we're kind of different. It's an honor system. And really, we just pretty much sell everything that we raise here. But just been it was real humbling, the outpour of the local community we got. We're pretty rural, but it was really worked out well for us.
Hey, Guy, are you still working with Local Food Connection through Creation Gardens?
We did a little bit last year. We really love Elise and Anna.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of with them from the very beginning. They've kind of changed their pickup locations, and for us to drive all the way to 6th Street in Cincinnati is kind of tough. And with local food, you never know exactly what you've got sold, and to drive down there for a few $100s, all right, but if you've got an order for $75 or $80, so we're trying to figure out how we're going to handle that this year.
Yeah.
They've really had a great model, and I can't thank them enough and talk how good they've done from that startup and where they've came. It's just been. Are you still working with them some?
Yeah, just we opted to not go GAP certification. We figured if we were going to jump through hoops, we'd go through local food safety for value added stuff like salads and soups and stuff like that. It's just too many dollars to squeeze out of a, you can only squeeze so much money out of a radish, it's so we just do honey and grains now. So and with Madhouse Vinegar, we've got a second business then that we deliver with, but I mean, we're considerably closer to their drop off point than you are. So the economics of it are different. So.
Yes, we did get GAP certified. I think we've been 2 years, but we're a small outfit, and they're only not just money wise, but time wise to get involved with everything is just a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
On that aspect. We have been to your farm store. It's really beautiful, and we loved your vinegars. We got some when we were down there.
Should told me I would have met you down there.
Karisa, you had a hand up.
Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. One, we have chickens on our farm. We've refrained from selling them to avoid opening ourselves up to liability. But I know none of you can give me legal advice. I'm gonna say that. But I just wanted to know if anybody had run into that sort of problem or witnessed sort of that sort of problem, and if you think that is something that's really a concern. And then also, one of the other things we considered was buddying up with a local small business and seeing if we could maybe like put a tent out front of their business with produce like 1 day a week or something like that. And if there's any sort of like pitfalls or concerns with that sort of arrangement that you guys might be able to offer wisdom on.
Well, mobile vending license, if you're just going to throw a pop-up in the corner of a parking lot somewhere, you got to be compliant with regulations. Ohio Department of Agriculture, they've got some good fact sheets. Our partners at the Ohio State University, their direct marketing team has a very good fact sheet on what you need to be aware of when labeling and marketing eggs in Ohio. So yeah, I got your email if you want me to send these resources to you. This is just the sort of thing why I'm here to answer these phones. So yeah, again, we can connect you up with these resources, save you the time, get you the answers that you need so that you can be back doing the good work in your community. Yeah, we save you some time. Oh, and I just lost him. Andy Hupp was on this call for a minute, and talk about the best laid plans. This guy had planned for a market garden direct marketing operation for years, and as soon as he pulled the ripcord on it, freaking COVID hit, and I really wanted to get to him, but day late. All right, we've gone 20 minutes over. Last call for questions, and then we can wrap things up. All right, I hope you all enjoy. We don't have an individual. This isn't necessarily a workshop. This was kind of more informal, but I do want to encourage you all to fill out in-depth evaluation about how this new conference format served you, what we might want to keep if we do go back to a physical presence, because there is some things that are very nice about this experience. So we want, again, many hands make the labor light, and your input and feedback are very important to us. Renee, you have anything to add?
No, there's a general evaluation in addition to the workshops evaluation. So look for that. And thank you for your time with that. If you have time to join us at our strategic planning listening session this afternoon at 1, that helps us think forward. So we thank you for your great thoughts.
Oh, Lisa has a real quick question.
Yeah, a quick question for Richard. Were you guys making and selling biochar? I thought someone down there was.
Not us.
Not you.
We work with some composting organizations here locally, but we don't do biochar. We kind of looked at it like probably 10 years ago, but the amount of resources required to do it properly were just beyond our capacity.
Yeah. Do you know anyone that is close by doing it or no?
No, not on any scale that's usable for us, because we would be looking at tons of it. So it's
Right.
There's some people
All right.
in their
I
backyards.
thought I had heard someone down there was, so I wasn't sure if it was you. Thanks.
See y'all.
Thanks so much.
Good seeing you guys, Eric, Renee.
Yeah.